At 3 a.m. on August 27, 2025, flames ripped through Kimball Castle. In less than 2 hours, a Gilded Age landmark collapsed into smouldering rubble. And yet, investigators discovered something impossible. The castle had no electricity, no lights, no power. So, how did it burn? Was this a tragic accident, or something far more deliberate? By sunrise, only a blackened skeleton stood against the sky. The ruins marked the violent end of a story that had been unraveling for decades, one of vanished funds, failed preservation, and bitter disputes. To understand how Kimball met its fiery fate, we have to return to its beginning, when a railroad baron carved his dream into a New Hampshire hillside. Picture the 1890s, high above Lake Winnipesaukee, where the crack of chisels echoed across the valley. At the center was Benjamin Ames Kimball, president of the Concord and Montreal Railroad, director of several others, a man whose empire ran on steel and steam. Yet with his fortune, he set out to build something far from the practical world of rail: a castle. The idea had taken root years earlier on the Rhine River. Traveling through Germany, Kimball gazed up at stone fortresses clinging to cliffs, their towers watching over the water. The sight obsessed him. He vowed New Hampshire's hills would hold his own fortress. Construction began in 1894, and he poured nearly $50,000, a staggering sum, into turning fantasy into stone. Granite and fieldstone came from Locks Hill below, hauled skyward by teams of workers. Oak woodwork was shipped from London, iron fixtures forged in Germany, rugs imported from the Orient. Each detail reflected Kimball's ambition to fuse local grit with global luxury. From its tower windows, the view stretched to the White Mountains and across 2 lakes. And at night, the whistle of trains drifting through the valley carried a reminder. This was the castle the railroads built. Architects called it part of the shingle style, a fusion of European romance and American boldness. In time, it earned national recognition, listed on the Register of Historic Places in 1982. But monuments don't live forever. And the question loomed: what happens when a dream outlives its dreamer? In 1960, Charlotte Kimball, the last surviving heir, signed away the estate. She donated the castle and 300 acres to the Mary Mitchell Humane Foundation, also known as the Alvord Wildlife Sanctuary. On paper, it looked generous, a gift meant to protect the land forever. But her will carried one devastating clause: the property could never be used for commercial purposes. What seemed like protection was a trap. It strangled every chance to generate the funds the castle desperately needed. The blow deepened when money earmarked for the project mysteriously vanished. Without resources, maintenance stopped, roof leaks spread, frost cracked the stone walls. What should have been a refuge for beauty became a monument to neglect. In 1981, the courts intervened. Belknap County Superior Court appointed the town of Guilford as trustee, subdividing the land and selling parcels to fund conservation. Yet the core problem remained. Without sustainable revenue, the castle itself was doomed. As the structure rotted, its grandeur collapsed. Urban explorers crept inside, describing plaster curling from walls and graffiti crawling over staircases. Locals compared it to watching a loved one starve to death. Then, in 1990, the Attorney General lifted Charlotte's restrictive clause. For a moment, hope flickered. Developers imagined hotels, preservationists dreamed of revival. The curse was broken, or so it seemed. Because even when the legal chains fell away, the castle kept dying. Its halls no longer echoed with the voices of builders, but with something colder, something that unsettled everyone who dared to walk inside. Ghosts in the granite became part of Kimball Castle's story as surely as the mortar that held its stones. Visitors spoke of icy cold spots in still air, whispers in vacant rooms, doors that slammed without a breeze. Some swore they saw shadows gliding across stairwells where no one stood. Paranormal teams set up cameras, EMF meters spiked, and stories spread online. One Reddit user even claimed the TV show Ghost Hunters had filmed here. Fact or rumor, it cemented the castle's reputation as a haunted relic. But the real strangeness wasn't only in the corridors. Money promised for repairs had already vanished. Volunteers offered to restore gardens, repair walls, even rebuild stonework for free. Every proposal hit the same wall, blocked by the town attorney, citing commercial concerns. Willing hands were turned away, and so the castle sat, rotting by law as much as by time. Urban explorers filled the void, posting grainy photos and eerie accounts, staircases that seemed to swallow sound, cameras that refused to record in certain rooms, an unexplained chill even in summer air. With each story, Kimball's identity shifted further, less a ruin, more a ghost site, where legend spread faster than stone could crumble. If you believe places like Kimball's deserve to be remembered, not just as ruins, but as lessons from the past, then that one click makes all the difference. It helps keep these stories alive, long after the stones are gone. By 2024, the castle was still privately owned, but visibly abused. Graffiti scarred its granite. Teenagers smashed bottles in the grand hall. Neglect settled in like rot. And then, one August night, the hill answered back in fire. At 3:17 a.m. on August 27th, 2025, firefighters reached Kimball Castle and found catastrophe already in motion. Flames tore through the halls, leapt into the surrounding woods, and cast the hill in an orange glare. Guildford Fire Chief Stephen Carrier later put it bluntly. It was a fully involved building. The roof had collapsed, the floors were beginning to collapse, and it was beginning to spread to the brush around the building. Within minutes, he called a second alarm, pulling in crews from neighbouring towns as 2 acres of forest ignited alongside the castle. The fire's ferocity left no chance of survival. By dawn, only charred stone walls remained, the oak beams reduced to ash. Heat had consumed the interior long before firefighters could fight their way inside. For long-time residents watching from the valley below, it was surreal. A crown of granite they had known for decades, dissolving into smoke and sparks. But the flames weren't the only shock. Deputy Police Chief Dustin Parent confirmed the castle had no electricity, eliminating an accidental cause. Investigators searching the ruins found accelerant traces, and the fire's spread suggested multiple points of ignition. With trespassers and vandals long known to haunt the property, suspicion ignited just as fast as the blaze itself. The State Fire Marshal's office took the unusual step of issuing a public plea. Send in photos, videos, or any sighting of suspicious vehicles that night, which raised the questions that still hang over Kimball. How did a powerless, long-abandoned structure erupt with such unnatural force? And who was on that hill before the flames? Accident? Arson? Or something calculated? The blaze was over by dawn, but the mystery was just beginning. 3 weeks before the fire, property records showed fresh movement around the Kimball estate. Developers had circled this land for decades, but in early 2025, the interest spiked again. The reason was obvious. A prime hillside with sweeping lake views, close to tourism routes, and loaded with historic allure. But obstacles remained. Zoning laws still limited what could be built, and every new proposal meant a battle of cost, regulation, and community pushback. Speculation spread quickly. Locals whispered about shell companies and late-night meetings on the hill. Nothing public tied developers to the blaze, but history told its own story. In 1996, a bed and breakfast plan collapsed. In 2014, an inflated asking price scared off buyers. Each time, the castle lingered, trapped in a cycle of high hopes, legal walls, and eventual failure. So why did interest resurface just months before the fire? Preservationists found the timing suspicious. Developers issued a polished statement calling the blaze a tragic loss for historic preservation. To some ears, it sounded sympathetic. To others, strategic. The words came too easily, too quickly. No company or contractor has ever been tied directly to the fire. But with the ruins gone, legal hurdles seemed to vanish just as fast. For those who had watched developers circle for years, the destruction felt less like coincidence and more like choreography. A door that law had kept shut was suddenly blown open by flames. And yet, Kimball Castle refused to vanish quietly. In its absence, the legend only grew louder. Stone memories rose quickly from the ashes. In the days that followed the fire, people still climbed the hill. Architecture students sketched the broken arches, imagining how the fortress once stood. Paranormal teams showed up with cameras and meters, convinced the blaze had awakened something restless in the ruins. Local artists joined in. One charcoal drawing of the burning castle spread widely online, its stark black and white lines capturing the loss in ways photographs couldn't. Even tourism brochures refused to let it go, printing the castle's silhouette as if the landmark still watched the lake. Online, the story grew even faster. Forums filled with theories, insurance fraud, curses, spectral revenge. Each new rumor added another layer of mystery, keeping Kimball alive in conversation long after the last embers cooled. The fire had not erased the castle. It had transformed it into a symbol of grief, of imagination, and of unanswered questions. The blaze also stirred something practical. Preservationists and lawmakers pointed to Kimball as a warning, debating how to protect vulnerable landmarks before it was too late. No single law bore its name, but the fire left a mark on policy, proof that history can vanish in a single night. And then came one final twist, whispered in local lore. Some say Kimball once envisioned a second tower, a twin spire that would have ruled the lake like a fortress of stone. No proof has ever surfaced, but the legend endures. In the end, the fire erased more than walls. It silenced the possibility of a dream larger than anyone ever realized. The stone may be gone, but the plans, the sketches, and the stories remain. Proof that Kimball's dream endures far beyond the flames. Kimball Castle's destruction left behind one hard truth. History doesn't disappear only through time. It can be erased in a single night. Was this landmark lost to neglect or stolen from history in one final suspicious blaze. Let me know what you believe in the comments. Neighbours remember that night vividly. Lisa Bergan, who lived across the street, woke to smoke and found ashes drifting onto her deck. That memory lingers as powerfully as the ruins themselves. Kimball was once a baron's dream, later a community's burden, and now a story carved into cautionary legend. If this story mattered to you, share it and tell us what you think, because some castles fade quietly and others burn their way into memory. Kimball is gone, but its shadow remains.